Alright, today on Cause 3D, we're starting our part 2 of the Mandalorian Jetpack build. Let's get started. Alright, so we're going to continue our sanding process right before we get to building just to make it easier on us later. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drop our parts onto the workspace and we're going to lightly mark them with pencil. Now what I'm doing this for is we want to make sure that we get everything sanded perfectly and as best we can. But we don't have to sand everything where it's not going to be seen. So now that I've got this marked, I know that this particular area in here, I don't have to mess with on sanding. So I'm going to make sure to give extra focus here along this edge, and I'm going to do the same thing over on this side, just in the areas, again, where you're going to see the parts. Same for the centerpiece here. I'm going to go in and mark where that sits so that I don't have to kill myself on these parts. You can also do it with your greeblies that go along the top here, and then I'm going to come back after I work on this and get it just as smooth as humanly possible, and then we'll start gluing stuff on. Alright, we've got everything sanded and ready to go for now, and what we're going to first focus on are our little bottom vent greeblies that we've got on the base of the pack. So I'm going to start with applying some glue, just using super glue in this case. Once I get enough on there that I feel confident that it will be stick on there, I'm going to come in and attach them. The problem with this glue and this, the fact that we put the resin on the body previously is, once you touch it, it's on there. So be prepared to drop it where you want it. And make sure that's where you want it, because you don't have a second chance at this. Let's move over to our other side here. A little bit of glue. Alright, we've got those on there. Apply a little bit of pressure, make sure they are nice and flat. Once these dry, we'll move on to the next piece. The next piece goes on are these first side tank covers. As always, we've dry fitted everything. Make sure that everything does fit properly. Here's a quick, easy trick. Everything that touches another piece does need to be sanded so that you get good adherence. So I've just thrown a piece of sandpaper down here. Make sure that we knock off any large burrs or anything that might keep it from sitting on there flush. We're going to dry fit it. Looks good. Now we're going to drop our glue in. This back piece does have ridges on it just from the printer. It's just the nature of how it prints. So once we get the glue on there, I'm going to use a little bit more than I normally do because we are going to have some squeeze into those thin areas. Seats all the way up against the top plate there. That looks pretty good. Alright, we're going to sand that piece. Again, dry fit. Looks good. On this one, we're going to apply glue on the bottom. And we're going to apply glue on this inside edge here. A little fast. Again, that piece goes all the way up against the top plate as well. So you got a little bit of a drip there. Looks good. Insta-set. Alright, we're to the first priming stage. So we're going to start with attaching our center rocket. And then we're going to put our center cover on there. It should just snap on. We're not going to glue it on right now. We're going to take all of our tanks, our rocket, and our back, and we're going to prime those separately. So let's move over to the paint booth. All right, now we're going to focus on building our thrusters and finishing them with our greeblies. So the first thing we need to do is we need to take our Dremel and clean out all of these receiving holes where our greeblies go into. So I'm just going to clean this out real quick. I'm just using a spiral cut bit on the end of this. We'll get these cleaned out and then we'll move over to installation of the greeblies. All right, you really want to take your time doing that. No need to get in a hurry because you don't want to have to add any more material back on if you take off too much. So we're gonna run our sandpaper just on the inside of that. Small piece of sandpaper here, clean off any hairs or burrs that we might have left. And then we're going to move over to our actual greeblies here. We need to clean them off because when they come off the print bed they do have a little bit of flashing on them. We're just going to sand them down on the edge really nice and smooth. Shouldn't take much. Now let's move back over to the one we just cut, and I'm going to drop this in very gently. And it feels like it's going to go in there just nicely. I'm not going to glue it yet. I'm going to go ahead and refit all of these in to make sure that they're correct. I use a big tongue depressor for this part just to line them up if they get a little twisted when they go in. It looks pretty good. Let's move over to our side greeblies here on the thrusters. Nice and tight. Fits in there pretty good as well. So there's our first thruster finished, and I'm not going to drop our attachment pin in there just yet. I'm going to hold off on that until I get everything ready, because I do want to sand off the top of this, so that I get a good join without the paint being in the way. All right, we've dry fit everything. Everything appears to fit just the way we want it. I'm going to drop some glue into the side piece here. Stick this piece piece in, get it seated in there really well. As long as you get the left and the right one in, you really just about can't mess this up. Goes in. Now we're going to drop in the center one here. This is where I like to keep my popsicle stick handy, just so I don't get this in there crooked. All right, that looks pretty good. Looks good. So we've got our thrusters done. We're going to get ready and move over to the next step. Now we're going to install the piano keys. Piano keys are a little tricky, but with a little bit of time and patience, it'll be fine. It'll be no problem at all. First thing I want to do is I just want to inspect them. They look pretty good on this print. Sometimes we have prints that have a little bit more lines in them than others. This one looks pretty good. So you've got a left and a right side. So where we start is, we start right here up next to where the side tank cover would go. And that's the long one, and then another long one. I guess for this camera side, we'll show it over here. It's the long one, then this one folds around just like that. Now we're going to remove them from this backing. So the first place I'm going to start is this small one clear over in the corner. Hopefully you'll be able to peel it right out of the tape and the print, the 3D printing that's on there. We're just going to fit this down in this side right here. Now I can tell right off the bat I've got a little bit of an overhang, so I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper and I'm just going to lightly clean off a little bit of this edge. I'm actually going to flip it over to the other side as well, do the same thing. Again, you don't want to get in a hurry on this. Remove a little bit at a time. And now we're going to dry fit it. And that comes pretty flush with the top edge here. So for this one, we're going to drop that one on with some super glue right off the bat. I do recommend that you start on the outer ones like I just did. Get a little super glue on there. Let's get it turned around. And very carefully drop it right where it belongs. Alright, it sits right up next to the top plate here. So we've got that in there now. Give it a second to grab hold with the super glue. And now we're just going to move over to our next one, which is the big, wider single one. I'm going to carefully peel it out of off the tape here. Again, we're going to dry fit it. This one looks like it's going to fit in there just perfect. Make sure I'm going to rub it along the edge anyway, just to clean off any extra flashing that might be stuck on there. Once you get them on there, you don't want to have to fiddle with them any further. Alright, now that one's nice and clean, I'm going to dry fit again. It does fit in there just right. Add some glue to the back. Very carefully place it right in there. I have gotten these on crooked, slightly crooked before, and it's okay if you do, don't panic, because once you get everything else on around them, you really don't notice them. Let's go with our next one. I'm going to dry fit this one. This one probably, well, it is going to fit in there pretty well. and just a slight gap at the top. Clean off any flashing again. Rough the back of this one up a little bit. And we're going to drop some more glue on there. Slide it up next to the top plate and just drop it right in. All right. Next one goes over the side tank cover here. Make sure it's good and cleaned off. Dry fit. Looks pretty good. I'm going to line it up with just the inside edge of the of this side vent piece so that I've got enough room for the next one to go in there. Apply our glue. Drop it right in. All right, for our last one that we're going to get the curve on. This one, like I said, it's the trickiest one of the lot. My Bondo can just happens to be the exact same diameter as what my center tank is here. So I'm going to take my piece, I'm going to move over here, and I'm actually going to heat it up with the heat gun. Being very careful not to also heat up my jetpack while we're on it. I'm going to use a low setting, and I'm actually going to keep my hand, don't burn yourself with this, but I'm going to keep my hand close to this because this plastic does heat up quick, and when it goes fast. I've got a nice curve to it. I'm going to come in and I'm going to dry fit. It's probably not going to fit. It's just a little bit too long here on this bottom edge. So I'm going to move over to some more aggressive sandpaper. I'm going to just remove some material. While I'm at it, I'm going to re-straighten my curve did get slightly melted. Not bad, nothing that you'll notice once we get it on there. Clean that off. Again, I'm just going to dry fit it again, see if we need to remove a little bit more. We are right there, dead on. All right, so I'm going to apply some glue. All right, we got our piano keys attached. We've got our greeblies on our thrusters. So we're just going to go back to the paint booth. We're going to give this a really good sanding. We're going to reprime it, a couple more sandings possibly if we find any trouble spots, and then we're going to come back with the next part. All right, so we've got everything primed and assembled. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to mask off this piece here because we want to be able to glue plastic to plastic when we're ready. So we're just going to run a piece of tape right down the middle here for when we're doing our other priming. And trim that up just a bit. And then we're going to leave that on there for the final gluing of this piece at the end. Now what we're going to focus on is our tanks that go on the sides here. So we got our epoxy. We're going to mix up our epoxy. We're going to apply some to the interior of this. We're going to slide them in carefully. The thing I do recommend on this part is look at reference photos to find out exactly the height of where they sit on the, how far they're pushed in and so forth. Reference photos can be found. You can go to thedentedhelmet.com and find tons of reference photos. That's where you're going to want to start. Let's get our epoxy mixed and let's get to gluing. Alright, so we're going to apply the epoxy on the inside, and I'm going to start with these bottom cylinders first. Since you've already dry fitted them, you know approximately where they need to sit. I'm going to get some epoxy in there. Being careful not to get it anywhere else on the jetpack. And then we're going to drop in our cylinders. As I said before, look at reference photos to find out exactly where these need to sit. I've done enough of these that I feel pretty comfortable with where I line them up. That one looks pretty good. And we're going to give this 5 minutes to cure, and then we'll move to the top ones. The epoxy's dried on these. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our little ring piece here. This is just a grommet that we're going to drop into our thruster. The reason why it's hollow is because it goes hollow all the way through the thruster. If you so chose to put a smoke system of some kind into this, you can, because these tubes are also hollow. So you could drop a tube of some kind down in here so that you can have smoke come out. But what we're going to do is, we've already dry fitted this. Now at this point, this cap should be as tight as you can get it. Make sure you work it so that it is tight on here when you put these on. And then we're going to drop a little bit of glue in on this piece and let the guide pin simply line it up, and you've got your thruster attached. For later, when you want to remove it, that's why we put threading on the caps, so that they do come off, so that you can service them and take them off. Now again, I'm not going to glue this on right now for me personally, because I do have some painting that I want to do separately, but that's the final stage of this build process. So at this point, this concludes our building phase of this project. Now we're going to move over to the painting and weathering stage, and make sure that you like and subscribe so that we can do more of these videos for you.